Chapter 23. Given that knowledge, Isabella decided they should resume their journey to Osoh Creek in 2 days' time. According to Tovano, the estate's security spell provided them some protection from discovery, but an enemy this resourceful surely would keep looking until they were found. Corrigan still needed more time to recover, but Bach knew arguing with the commander would prove fruitless. They also resumed posting guards on their last night in the Grenadier house. Isabel volunteered to take the first shift upstairs, while Bach remained in the downstairs den. While he kept watch, he settled into a red upholstered chair and studied the spellbook Tovano loaned him. The shield spell was the first, and perhaps most important, spell a combat sorcerer learned as a House of Magic acolyte. Spellcasters learned a nearly unlimited range of attack magics, but one general spell for defense. Tovano explained that mastering the Sonarian stalwart shield could be the difference between life or death. As he studied, Bach attempted to mimic the gestures and movements the sorcerer had showed him, but he couldn't quite get it right. He slapped his palm down on the chair's cushioned arm and groaned. This is impossible. I'll never be able to do this. No, you fold your index finger over your middle one and then snap your wrist, rather than waving your hand. Kotarian stood in the open doorway between the kitchen and den, waving another bottle of wine. Like this. He set the bottle on the edge of a bookshelf and cracked his knuckles. With a few muttered words and a quick hand motion, a textbook-perfect mystical shield appeared in front of him. Even with Bach's rudimentary knowledge of high magic, he could tell it was more potent even than the ones Tovano could conjure. He looked at Kotarian, who simply raised his eyebrows. Bach tried the shield himself, concentrating on the words and gesturing as Kotarian showed him. A blue-green field of energy appeared in front of him. He poked it with a finger. It gave a little, but was solid. Thank you, Kotarian. You should be my tutor. Kotarian scoffed. What? You think I have time to spoon-feed magic to an absolute beginner, less ready than the slowest, most ill-prepared first-year apprentice on Sonorian Square? He uncorked the wine bottle with his hands and tilted the bottle back for a deep drink. I'm sorry, Bach sputtered. I didn't intend it that way at all. I simply meant that you are skilled at sorcery, and I appreciate the small fraction of your knowledge that you have shared. Honestly, my sole intent was gratitude. Kotarian took another slug from the wine bottle. Well, I suppose that is understandable. Were I in your position, I'd be grateful if one of my talents shared their counsel too. Probably the nicest thing Kotarian has ever said to me on the entire trip. Were your parents in the House of Magic too? No. My parents and I lived on our estate just east of Ithanel. Kotarian took a seat beside Bach and set the bottle on an ornately carved end table. But I never wanted to be someone who managed peasants and attended masquerades. I wanted to do more. When I was 14 summers, I submitted my name to the House of Magic to be screened for the acumen. To my delight, but hardly my surprise, I was found to be imbued with the ability to perform high magic. I served my 4-year apprenticeship, studying with such masters as Salandrian and even Karagian himself. I finished at the top of my class. It's why I wear this. Kotarian tapped the star-burst brooch attached to his shirt. Upon completing my apprenticeship, I became an acolyte of the house, and was given increasingly important duties. Once we return, I will be formally inducted as a full member of the House of Magic, the culmination of 7 years of work and sacrifice. Bach exhaled. I can see why magic makes you so passionate. More than you can ever know. The bed creaked in Corrigan's room. Bach bolted up and checked on the resting guardian. Still asleep. He turned back to Kotarian, but lowered his voice to a whisper. I bet Karagian was a tough teacher. He seemed like a real fireball back at the council meeting. Kotarian stroked his hand through his short blonde hair. A fireball. He would like that country colloquialism. Yes, he is demanding, but I earned his complete respect. I am honored to call him a mentor. Bach sat down and stared at the red and white striped wallpaper, something he'd never seen in Sola Valley. He thought about bringing up Wenny Khan, but he figured Kotarian might be insulted if he compared a folk magic healer to the House of Magic Chancellor. What about Salandrian? He wasn't like the rest of you sorcerers. He seemed inept, hapless. Kotarian laughed, gargling a mouthful of wine as he did. Don't get me wrong. Salandrian is a fine academic, and he is an excellent steward of the house's collection of arcane knowledge. But as a magic user, he is not in the same class as Karagian, Leronian, or me, if I am being honest. From what I've seen, I can believe it. Bach closed the spellbook. I'm glad you were here for another reason, Kotarian. Tovano's story about me being noble-born. It seems far-fetched, but given the evidence, I can think of no other answer. You know far more about high magic than I ever will. What do you think? Kotarian's eyes went wide. Of course it's far-fetched. The idea of you as some long-lost noble, the heir to a legacy of magical ability, when you are so serving class. The notion of you being one of us is absurd. Bach rubbed the back of his head, reaching under his dark brown hair. What you say is harsh, but not untrue. How then can I perform high magic? I'm hardly a sorcerer, or your level, or Princess Isabella's. The comparison caused Kotarian to frown. But you saw what I did just now. Sonarian's stalwart shield. Speak the name if you are going to use it. My apologies. Sonarian's stalwart shield. How could I cast such a spell if I am serving class, as I have believed my entire life? Oh, you are definitely noble class. Kotarian drained the last of the wine. Just because what Tovano says is absurd doesn't make it any less true. Some way, somehow, you are of noble parentage. Perhaps your mother. Kotarian laughed to himself as Bach's ears grew hot. Well, some jests are too pointed even for me. Kotarian ended Bach's final hope of returning to life as he'd known it. Perhaps it is time to stop fretting about what is past and start figuring out how to move forward. Bach stared out the window into the dark Nassim night, his mind returning to a decade in the past. When he and Yata were children, they pretended to be sorcerers on those days when their chores were done and their parents told them to go outside and play. But those were childhood fantasies, adventures that a young boy and his rough-and-tumble sister spun to fend off the boredom of long summer days. This was real, as much as he wished it weren't. I prayed that I find a way to protect my family and friends, and I have been granted that gift. I still need answers. But one thing is clear. I must use these abilities to help others. The blacksmith's boy is a noble and a sorcerer now, whether I want to be or not. Maybe I never was a blacksmith's boy at all. Thank you, Kotarian. I suppose Tovano and I have plenty of work ahead of us. Kotarian threw back his head and laughed. Ah, Tovano! Ah! Tell me, Baron Blacksmith, do you trust Tovano? Bach nodded. That is your first and biggest mistake. Kotarian slammed the empty wine bottle down on the end table between his seat and Bach's. Has he told you about the circumstances of his departure from the House of Magic? No, I don't know the exact story, but I get the sense he left in protest of certain house practices. Of course, that's what he wants you to think. Kotarian spat. The truth is, Bok, that your trusted mentor Tovano was expelled from the House of Magic. It was before my time, and as I am not yet a full member, I am not privy to the exact nature of the dispute. But I can say for sure that his departure was the decision of our leaders, not some lofty sacrifice by Tovarian, or Tovano as you know him. Well, it is no concern of mine. I'd caution against putting too much faith in that charlatan. Kotarian continued. Your friend Tovano desires one thing, what is best for Tovano. Everything and everyone else are just collateral to purchase that reward. Expelled from the House of Magic? Was Tovano a fork-tongued opportunist, rather than the kindly old teacher he appeared to be? Tovano has been eager to help, while Kotarian, well, has been Kotarian. But the young sorcerer reinforced one idea in Bach's mind. If he listened, studied, and practiced as he had never done before, he could master high magic. He cast another shield spell, and this time it was a bit sturdier and lasted a few seconds longer than his previous attempts. A bit better, but you have farther to go than you can even imagine. Kotarian pointed to the empty wine bottle. Take care of that, will you? I'm going to bed. Bach mulled over what Kotarian had said for a while, then decided his time would be better spent reviewing the spellbook, rather than pondering his now uncertain parentage. After another hour of study, he jumped when he heard a loud creak from the kitchen. Houses naturally settle at night. Surely a groaning floorboard caused that noise. But Bach eased out of his chair and tiptoed into the kitchen just to make sure. Wham! Something hard and flat struck him between the shoulder blades, knocking the wind from his body and his body to the floor. What you doing here, villain? Answer me, or I'll brain you good.